Welcome back to my channel, From Canada to Adana. Today is part two of my conversation with Lisa, a fellow Canadian who has been living in Spain with her family for the past year. Here we go. It sounds like a big part of one of your maybe survival secrets um, for living the way you are right now in Spain is also just to, number one, make decisions and then just fully lean into those decisions and don't wonder what if, not wonder what if. But then the second thing maybe is just to really live in the moment, because I mean, it sounds like you don't know what's going to happen next summer. A year from now, will you extend for a third year? Will you go back to Toronto? If you do go back to Toronto, where will you go? It sounds like you don't know any of the answers to that, but that's being okay with that. If
Yeah,
you weren't okay with that, if
for
that was
sure.
causing stress, I think that would be a problem, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think part of it is my husband is a very much make the best decisions you can in the moment and just deal with that. And I think too, what we've seen in the last 3 months, 4 months, is you have no idea what the future is going to bring. And so making too many decisions based on what's going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you just have no idea. And also, again, losing my mom, I became more someone who lives in the moment because I realized that you have so few moments. And I had another friend who did a trip like what we did. She spent a year living on a boat with her husband and her kids, and they originally were going to do it when he retired. And they decided to do it earlier because he had got like a gap year in his work. And she passed away just 2.5 years after they did that trip, maybe even less. And if they had put that off, right? Like if you put off life, I've had honestly, just too many examples of in the last several years. If you put off life, you just don't know that you're going to have that time. And I'm just not interested in doing that. And so I think there's a balance, obviously. Like I am aware, and you and I've talked about this. I don't want to be flaky. I don't want to be like, flitting from one thing to another. I want my children to have roots. I want my children to have solid relationships. But, you also, it's what you create. And, your home is where your family is, where the four of us are, is home. And we do encourage them and work for them to create relationships. And I don't see us, moving every 2 years or anything like that. I guess in a year we have to, think more about it. I don't know. I don't know that I can see living here long term.
Mm-hmm.
My husband can see it more. I don't know. We'll see. But then again, I would have sworn up and down that this was just 1 year and that's it. And we're staying another year. So yeah, so we'll have to see. But yeah, like you have to, at some point in life, I think it's a big benefit to recognize that all we have is now, and to make the decisions that make you feel happy and fulfilled today. Ultimately, I think is what leads to long-term happiness.
Yeah. Beautifully said. And what a great set of options to have to choose between. So is it too early to say how living in Spain has changed you? I mean, I don't want to ask you to guess what it'll be like to reintegrate to Canadian life. But can you already tell ways you've changed? Does anyone back in Canada maybe visiting you or just speaking via, the internet, do they mirror back to you ways that you've changed?
I think friends who have come here, because I've been through such a dark period, I think that friends who have come here have said, you seem happier, you seem more like your old self, you seem lighter. And so probably that's both a function of time, but also a function of being somewhere. I mean, I love languages. I love travel. I love the seaside. I don't relish a Canadian winter, never have. So I do think that Spain has contributed to that. I don't know how it's changed me I mean, we've had to get used to certain things culturally. You know, things move a little slower here. Everything's a lot later. Getting used to siesta, everything closes from 2 till 5, depending, or 2:30 to 5:30, depending. Like getting used to a new rhythm, for sure. Living in a new language is, you know, where we are has a lot of expats. Is 30% expat. So even in winter, so it is a town. It's not a city. It's a big town. It's not a village, but it's not a city, but it does have a more cosmopolitan feel because there are so many different nationalities here. And so I do think that both makes it easier, but also contributes to maybe a slightly different feel. If we had moved to a small town in the middle of nowhere in Spain, I'm sure it would have been even more different, right? The kids would have gone to school in either Spanish or Catalan, and you know, there would have been a lot other differences. I do think that this is some place you could live and never speak Spanish if you really wanted to, but we've always felt that you want to be a part of the place where you are. And I think you're right. When I get back to Canada, it's probably even to visit. I mean, we haven't even been back to visit because of the whole quarantine. Maybe then even I'll have more perspective on that.
So just to clarify, your girls are going to a school where the language of instruction is English.
That's right. So they go to an international school. I felt at 11 and 13, and moving them away from everything they know, throwing them into local school would have been too much. So paying for school.
Sorry, go ahead.
So paying for private school is something we've never done before, and that was an adjustment. You know, it's like having a second rent. So, but we found a great school that we really like, and the girls are both completely thriving. They are learning Spanish. I would say if we'd only stayed 6 months, there would have been not very much in the way of absorbing a language. But I'd say even in the last couple months, ironically, while they've been home, they're starting to take on more Spanish. And one of the big pluses for staying another year is I felt like they could take on more of the language and maybe move towards fluency, or at least, you know, functional fluency. So that was a big one for me. I just thought, what's the point? For the sake of one more year, they could really have a skill that could really benefit them in life. So yeah, so that was part of it. They have kids from all over the world in their schools, which is fun. That said, people in an international school leave a lot, and so they're losing some friends this year, which is hard. But you know what? They were the ones that left Toronto, and their friends lost them. So, you know, like, it's still a life lesson. And I think, I mean, although I see the benefit, if we were staying here long term, for sure, of them going into local school. I mean, where we live, the first language is Catalan, and to go to a public university in Barcelona, you can only go in Catalan. So, but a lot of things are also done in Spanish. So yeah, like the part for me that's a little bit up in the air is like, if we were staying long term, what happens? And I know I talk about living in the moment, which is what my husband keeps reminding me, but I can't help but look a little bit in the future and go, well, where are they going to go after their school ends in 2 years? Because their school only finishes in 2 years, which would be the equivalent of kind of like grade 10. Like the equivalent of grade 10 in a Canadian high school. And so you have to finish those last 2 years. And what do you do then? And I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet, but it's definitely in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Well, I think also, like you said, you don't want to be flaky, and you also want to live in the moment. So just holding those two things.
Yeah.
Some kind of a balance. So I have one final question for you. Do you consider yourself brave?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think I'm brave. I'm brave in some ways, and in other ways I am less brave. You know, like there are things that certainly make me uncomfortable, like you know, someone who just ups and moves to Asia or something like that, or somewhere where they know absolutely no one. Like that to me is more brave, because I think language is something that makes me feel comfortable. And if I have no concept of a language at all, that would make me really nervous. Or moving on your own by yourself. Like I'm moving with my little tribe. And so we can figure things out and we have the comfort of where we are. And like, you know, I look at other people and I feel like they're brave because they're doing things that I would find really scary. There definitely was moments of like, for sure, during this whole process. I mean, selling our house and moving everything and the visas and I mean, all the details, you just have to kind of take it step by step. You know, especially in Toronto, your house is your security blanket financially and otherwise. So, you know, people are like, oh, you're never gonna be able to buy back in again. And aren't you afraid this and that? And you know, in that way, we just made the decision to, I think it's all about making a decision, really. Like if you make a decision that you want to do something, all the rest is just details.
Yeah.
It's just figuring out the details and checking them off one by one. And, you know, we had been here before. We weren't moving someplace where we had no idea. We were renting. We even rented for 2 weeks before we even chose a place to live. So yes, we're brave, but I think we also come up with a plan, come up with an idea of how to accomplish something. And I do think that it makes the kids more brave, for sure. Like I think it instills in them that change is not, that change can be uncomfortable without being scary. That change can have more benefits than not. And choosing not to do something just because it's scary is not the right reason to make a decision. There has to be something a little more, you know, and especially again with this COVID thing, right? So many people now are questioning so many choices. And I think that we feel really good about ours.
Yeah. Just going back to something you said a moment ago that my little radar went off, talking about being uncomfortable. I think for me, the biggest thing personally, but also as a mother, is I want to practice being okay with being uncomfortable and not fleeing at the first indication of discomfort. And I really hope that my kids can develop that skill, almost like I can train them to be okay with feeling uncomfortable, knowing that it passes, knowing that it often is a necessary you know, thing to pass through to get to something better, bigger, different.
Yeah. And I had done that when I started a network marketing business almost 9 years ago. And I did a lot of personal development through that. And that definitely started the journey. I mean, I think without seeing that there are other options other than the norm, you know, you and I both grew up with the, you know, 3 up, 3 down suburban house, you know, parents, 2 cars, whatever, what have you, right? And I think to step out of that, I needed to see that there are all sorts of ways to live that are so, you know, fulfilling and open. And if that's yours, that's great, but not to limit yourself. And so I think that opened my eyes to the possibility of something different. And then we just kept following that. And I do think that I don't see how it couldn't affect our kids. I mean, because they're growing up completely differently than the way we did. I mean, we'll see, right? We'll see. Kids can always, like, I always think, like, no matter what you do, kids are going to end up in therapy talking about how awful you were at some point. So as well, just
no matter what we do, we're
no matter what.
Lisa, I could talk to you all day, every day.
And sometimes we do.
Where can people find you if they want more of you?
On Instagram, maybe you can write it in the description below for me. It's at Lisa Kish, which is my name. And I also have a sewing YouTube channel if you happen to be a sewer.
Or a knitter.
Which is called And Sew on SEW. And that's about it, I think.
I'll link that as well. Great.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, thank you so much again for doing this. And
my pleasure.
I'll talk to you very soon.
Yeah, we'll talk later.
Bye.
Bye.
So that is the end of my conversation with Lisa. If you enjoyed this video, please give it the thumbs up. And if you'd like to hear more conversations with people living abroad, please subscribe to my channel, From Canada to Adana. Coming up, we'll be talking with an old friend, Janelle, who has lived in Corfu as well as in Portugal and is now back in the States with her family. She's going to talk about repatriation. We're also going to talk to my friend Chrissy, who is an entrepreneur and has started a company in Istanbul. See you next time. Bye.